Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are going to jump straight in to episode 9 of season 3, which is Nisei?
Nisei. Nisei, I'm guessing. Nisei. It's Japanese, isn't it? So
Nisei?
Yeah, Nisei. Nisei!
It begins with an N. Brian, does the episode that begins with an N rank highly in the X-Files fandom?
It appears to, yes. So obviously, like something we started last episode, which I'll continue on with this episode. I looked at it on the IMDb ranking. So obviously, there's just over 200 episodes of the X-Files, and this episode ranks at number 44, which obviously puts it in the top quarter. So according to X-Files fans, or IMDb X-Files fans at any rate, this is within the top quarter of episodes. It had an 8.6 rating. I don't really give much credence to the ratings on IMDb, but it is interesting. I think the rankings are interesting. They're obviously going to only be voted for by fans, so it gives a good indication of where this sits. Whether that's where it sits for me and you is remains to be seen.
Yeah. So we're going to jump straight in to Knoxville, Tennessee, where we have a train, which already I'm sold because I love train movies and things like that. So I'm like, yes, this is great. The train is uncoupled and just left there. And then we get but what I really like, a wonderful shot of the camera climbing up the train and then over the top of the carriage. And it kind of creates this otherworldly looking piece of equipment. You know, the way that it's so close and into it, it looks almost like a UFO, the way they kind of shoot it.
It takes an object that is essentially everyday and turns it into something that is ominous and maybe has something darker underneath. Like, and I think that's definitely intentional, because another thing I put in my notes, something that really jumps out at me is just how nice the opening is, how fluffy and light, because we see a bunch of kids on the side and they're waving at the guy on the train and he's waving back, all like, oh, hello, and I kind of get the sense that he doesn't even know what's in that car.
What the
car's going to be used for. But I think there is a juxtaposition there of this everyday, normal kind of situation in which actually something, and it does make you think about how things in our lives, the everyday kind of normalcy of things, that what's actually bubbling away underneath, what dark secrets are being kept from us in everyday objects like train cars and things. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And then pretty much after that, we get a range of cars pulling up, and then we get what seems to be Asian gangsters get out, and I didn't know where it was heading at the time, so I just thought
triads. What's going on?
The Triad Invasion of America. Yeah,
it felt a bit Lethal Weapon 4, didn't
it? And to get inside, and it is an alien autopsy. And there's no beating around the bush. It is what it is. It's actually really well shot. Of course, this one's directed by the Nutter.
Nutter.
And they do some nice things of kind of blurring the footage a little bit, seeing it through cameras, getting weird angles, so you don't get the kind of fake-looking alien. You know, you get glimpses that make it feel a little bit more realistic. So interesting, that opening.
Yeah, camera's always moving in this opening as well. Always moving, and sometimes to its detriment, because it's. I mean, I've seen this like so many times, so I think, but at this point, I'm looking for things that perhaps you wouldn't normally look for. But it's just when all the SWAT come in, so the SWAT bust in and basically gun these guys down, and I feel like the direction for a lot of these SWAT guys is, you got to keep moving, guys. You got to be in there. You got to be doing stuff. And I feel like one of the SWAT guys doesn't quite know what to do, and you just feel like he looks quite uncomfortable, and he pushes his way past a bunch of the others. He's like, I don't know where I'm going. And it's like having been an extra on several things, I can completely relate to the thought processes that perhaps this guy is dealing with as an actor. But it's just, it was quite amusing just watching them all huddle around in this small train car, trying to look active like a SWAT team.
But it's an interesting opening, and you kind of know immediately that it's a kind of legacy episode. We're into the mythology of the X-Files. There's no playfulness. It's no monster of the week. This is something that's going to be the larger story. And after the opening, we get the intro, and then we jump straight in to Mulder watching the alien autopsy. And they make a passing comment about the one that was on TV, and that was really, you kind of forget about that, but that was a big thing.
It was
back in the early 90s.
And it was by the same studio that owned X-Files, that produced X-Files. So they're actually taking a pot shot at their own company, which was always quite amusing. And it does also feed into why that introduction of the train car was shot the way it was, because when we go over the roof of the shot you mentioned, when the camera moves over the top of it, we see that satellite dish that's on top of it, which is obviously the explanation as to why this alien autopsy gets picked up. Obviously they're feeding that somewhere, and then some guy, some randomer, just for whatever reason,
just pulled out there.
Picked up the signal. So there you go. But I like Scully's comment about how this isn't your usual brand of entertainment, and there's like a bit of a knowing wink between them, because obviously the joke there is that Mulder always watches porn. There's been numerous references in the show to him like watching porn, but and Scully always takes a crack at him for it. But
it's quite an interesting one. I like the little argument, Foxy's argument of like, it must be real because you don't see anything.
This is real precisely because you don't see too much. It's like, okay.
And then it's the kind of part at the end when the SWAT come in. Like one, why is that footage missing? And that's the kind of impetus to hook Scully. She's kind of curious about those guys that burst in. It kind of leads on to the city where they're going next, and where they're going next is Rat Tail Productions.
So Mulder and Scully go to speak to the man who made the tape, because he said he pulled it off a satellite. But when they get there, they find him basically with a bag over his head, lying on a bed.
Dead. Execution style. It's quite an image.
It's quite
for TV in the 90s. It's execution style murder. It kind of, even watching it now, was a little bit of a shock, to get that image.
Very police procedural kind of thing that we take for granted these days, I guess. But so they find him dead, and the killer flees the property. So it's a Japanese guy dressed in a suit, runs. Basically, Mulder chases him down, gets his ass handed to him, but then thankfully pulls another gun from his ankle because he gets tired of losing his gun. It's just, it's a nice. You can't really call it a fight scene because it's more of a asking. I think in order for it to be a fight scene, there has to be blows exchanged on both sides. And clearly Mulder just gets his ass handed to him. So
the only thing Mulder hits is the ground. Really. But to show you like where I've come from in the series, I was like, where's Scully to save him? She must be coming, please.
Oh, man. Wait till you get to season 11. It's not the same Mulder in season 11, and it leaves a lot of fans wondering where the hell he got his new set of skills from.
But it's like, he kind of catches the guy, and even when the guy's like got a gun on him, he's just like so uncooperative, like won't hand over the case, won't move.
It's sheer arrogance, isn't it? Because he turns out to be a diplomat, so he's again going back to Lethal Weapon. Diplomatic immunity. It's so diplomatic community in this case. So I apologize to any of my Japanese friends. It's just the guy is just really arrogant, and I think it's because of that whole. He's that used to being able to do whatever he wants, having that diplomatic immunity that he's just like, and he knows he's going to get out of it. He knows that Mulder can arrest him now, he can take him in, and he's going to get out of it. So.
Yeah, the next scene has a little. It's all got these title cards of where they are, and this kind of weirded me out a little bit because it was titled as Substation C. But it just felt like a police station,
right?
Like, and I'm just like, what's an NB? What's going on?
Why haven't they taken him to A or B?
Yeah, it's just weird.
I didn't notice that. I rarely take notice of those title cards that come up at the bottom. I don't do well with signs, it must be said. But
yeah, I'm always curious as what they say. But Substation C just seemed odd, because I thought it was a police station of sorts or a detainment area. So we're in the building.
Yeah. I did put in my notes here though that obviously I clearly saw that it was Allentown. But I put the police station makes it look like Allentown must be the prostitute capital of the US. Skinner arrives like a beacon in the night, and I could swear he checks out the prostitute as she goes. So this prostitute gets dragged past him as he's coming in, and he's like,
There's a little trivia on IMDb about this episode, and it just says that to make it look like a police station, they just throw in hookers. I was like, okay, so not policemen or people in custody. No, we'll just put prostitutes in there because that depicts a police station.
Yeah.
Got you. But yes, Skinner arrives through swarms of hookers to. This kind of conversation it's almost threatening again. It's negative Skinner. It feels like.
Yeah, well, this is Skinner who is having to answer to somebody. Because we've got to remember Skinner has higher ups. He's an assistant director. He's not the director. So there are times when Mulder clearly goes off track, like because he's got into this case on his own. This isn't official FBI business, because when Skinner asks about it, Mulder is like, he kind of gives Scully a look as if to say, "Don't say anything, don't say it." We're looking into a piracy thing. It's like, and that's because if you actually told them what you were doing, they would be like, "Drop it! You're not doing this case. This isn't even a case that's fit for investigation." This is typical Mulder using FBI resources to chase down his own stuff. So when Skinner gets there, he's already been probably told off by somebody because an agent that he's clearly not controlling very well has just arrested a diplomat. So Skinner's got to get himself out of this situation.
What I love most about this is I'm kind of in two minds, because I'm wondering if Skinner is both wanting to help Mulder but wanting to toe the line for his work related as well. But as he's leaving, he body checks Mulder. He hits his shoulder as he leaves.
Yeah.
And it's just this like alpha male protocol 101.
Was that quite necessary, Skinner?
Just no need. And the kind of thing I like about Skinner is he does look like a bookworm nerd type of thing. But we've seen before he can handle himself in situations.
I mean, he's a big guy. He's like he's not. He doesn't look like a pushover, but
no.
That is quite amusing. But so this guy is a diplomat called Kusulu Sakurai, and it's it basically Mulder kind of takes Scully to one side and shows her the evidence that he forgot to hand in. And it's the bag that he took off Sakurai, and it's got these satellite photos in. So they were tracking a ship, a small ship, and there's also names on there that have been crossed out. One of them was obviously the guy that was on the bed, but there's a name on there of a woman called Betsy Hagopian. Betsy, I can get the Japanese guy. I can't get the the Anglo-American woman. So this is the typical point in the episode where they decide to split up and pursue separate lines of inquiry.
Yeah.
And this is probably the point at which Graham is going to start going, oh, man.
Initially, it's a point because they are splitting up, but I think both of them have really interesting stories to follow that both kind of tackle their history with the X-Files and things like that. So I feel that they have enough going on that it makes it interesting enough. And the way it's cut, that we'll get to quite a lot between these scenes, because they're fairly quick between Scully's story and Mulder's story, that kind of keeps it fresh, and not one story overpowers the other, which I think is good.
There's a lot of information going on, I think.
And a lot of intrigue of It's like we get like maybe minute 90-second segments of each of their stories, and as the end, you want to know more.
Yeah, there's a lot about this episode actually that reminds me of. I mean, you've probably not read it, but there is an X-Files novel called Ground Zero.
Okay,
and this has very much a feel of that novel because there's a Japanese flavour to that as well, and Mulder and Scully go off and do separate investigation. But it did make me think of that watching it this time around. But yeah, so Scully goes to the Mutual UFO Network to try and speak to Betsy Hagopian, while Mulder texts the satellite photos to our favourite conspiracy theorists, the lone gunmen.
Yes.
And we have Frohickey perched like a gnome on the end of the table. And they're all kind of checking out these photos and pitching in. And it suddenly hit me when I was watching this episode last night. One of the things that bugs me about most TV shows, like if you look at most fantasy and science fiction shows, they all have the one computer nerd, you know, the person they go to divulge information, and they know everything, and they're usually quite annoying. If I'm being perfectly honest, they're a stereotype, and they, you know, Joss Whedon puts them in every single one of his shows, and then everybody else has followed suit, and they put them in every one of their shows. Yeah, and I think the reason you don't get that with the X-Files, you love these guys and you don't find them annoying because there's three of them, and it allows for this interplay that always happens, even if it's not verbal. There's a physical interplay that goes on between them as well, whether it's a look, you know, knowing looks, this, that, and the other. And I really do think that Carter hit on something by having a group of these nerds. Like, I think if this was any other show, it would be one person who's super intelligent, does all of the, you know, because they are just the exposition guy.
Like you say, in any other show, it would be one character. But here, not only are they three characters, there's three very different characters. You know, the extreme traits. In any other walk of life, these guys wouldn't be friends. They wouldn't hang out. They wouldn't work together. But they have a singular purpose between them all, and they forgive the quirks that each of them have. You know, it's great characters. As soon as they appeared on screen, I'm smiling. I'm having a good time. Regardless of the fact that it's just exposition, and the fact that they instantly know everything just by looking at a satellite photograph. I don't care. I don't, you know, I mean, that satellite photograph could have been any time over many years, but they're just like, yeah, that's a telepus. Yeah. You know, just like,
but so I just that was just something that hit me last night when I was watching it, because these generally on other shows are characters that annoy the crap out of me, because they are just Basil exposition. The Lone Gunmen never feel like Basil exposition because of because they're a group rather than So so the Talipus supposedly went looking for a sunken Japanese sub that was carrying gold. But the satellite photos track it ending up at a US naval base. Mulder theorizes that they found something else entirely. So, yeah. So Mulder goes off to track the ship. And just before we go to Scully, we see that Sakurai is murdered by an assassin.
Stephen McHattie.
Stephen McHattie, yes. So go on. Hit us with your Stephen McHattie knowledge.
I love the guy. My particular favourite role of his is Pontypool,
Right.
where he is the lone DJ character in a horror movie about the spoken word.
I can't imagine him playing that character based on what I've seen.
It's a fast-talking radio DJ.
Right.
And it's him on screen for 98% of the time.
Right. When I look at Stephen McHattie, I get he's like a cross between Rutger Hauer and the dude from Prison Break, who was also in Transporter 3, Robert Nepper.
Yeah. I'd throw in Robert Patrick.
Yeah, a bit of Robert Patrick in there as well. Yeah, he's one of those actors who instantly makes me think of other people. But yeah, like this was my introduction to him, to be honest.
Right. It's one of those faces that you don't instantly trust. You know, it's kind of pointed, and you're just like, oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, he's a Disney villain. He's like, if you're gonna draw some villain in Disney, we make all his features pointed and.
Yeah, even when he comes, the way he comes out the shadows, he's on screen for seconds, and you're just like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I do not trust him. So yeah, okay. So Scully turns up at the MUFON headquarters, which is just somebody's house, basically. And the two women that open the door to her recognize her. Really freaks her out. And so this is this section now is like you were saying, it keeps jumping from one to the other, which is we're getting loads of information. So Mulder goes to speak with a naval officer who really looks like Johnny Can't Be Asked. It's just like when Mulder asks him to get something, I can't tell if this guy is purposefully trying to just mislead Mulder and send him down the garden path because that's his orders, or whether he's just generally, I can't be asked, you're making me do something I don't want to do kind of guy.
At first, I mean, it's hindsight, obviously, but at first you're just like, he can't be bothered. He doesn't seem to know anything. But later on, you're like, he must know that boat's still there.
Yeah.
You know, so that's like a good performance because he gives away that kind of not interested.
Yeah, there's no way he can't. Can't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who called the security team.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, because no one else knows Mulder's there. Well, I mean, the diplomat knows that Mulder had his back. Yeah. So he knows. So you know. So yeah. Either way, there's many ways that people could know where Mulder is. So.
Yeah, I love I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but there's a moment where he goes, I can get you the information if you want, but it'll take a long while. And Mulder's like, I'm happy to wait. The guy leaves, and then by the time he comes back, you can see Mulder just running
off. And I love the look on the guy's face, like, oh, son of.
Yeah.
But did you notice he came back without any papers?
And he came back really quick.
Yeah. So it's like, I get the feeling he just came to tell Mulder to do one. I'm just going to close my window because a bin lorry has just arrived at the front. Hang on. There we go. I'm not cutting that out. You can have that one for free as Lucas. Image of my crotch in the camera.
Just a small cameo.
This is... Okay. Right. So, where are we? Yeah. So go on.
Scully's talking to the group about the bright white place And I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I want to know more. I like the fact that it's got all these group of just middle-aged looking women who have one thing in common.
It kind of looked like the reject Stepford Wives. So
It really did. Yeah.
It's all kind of sat there like staring at her. And you're just like, either these girls are just really, really freaky, or they've been through some stuff. But
and then they all just like, are you shaking your implant at me? Just...
yeah. But Scully just looks like proper weirded out.
Yeah, she's shell shocked. Yeah,
it's bizarre because I've seen these episodes so many times that it's hard to remember what my initial reaction was to them.
Right.
Like I will say there's moments in this section now that we're going through that I start to get bored by.
Right.
And I don't think that was always the case. So, there would have been a time like when I first saw this episode where, like you, I was just hooked. I'm like, because they're just throwing so much information at you. But now, because I've seen it so many times and I know all this information, now I just I watch it and it feels like a constant information dump.
Yeah.
And I feel like the next episode gives us more. I don't know, more little moments that I enjoy on their own kind of thing. Whereas this is more about the overall framework that how it ties into everything else. Dwayne Barry and all that kind of stuff. So
I think Gillian Anderson gives a brilliant performance when she's in the room with the women, and even more so for the character of Scully, because all the while watching this, she's a fighter.
Yeah.
Every scene she's a fighter, and she's kind of subjected to the truth here against what she wants to believe, and her initial response is flight. She just wants to get the hell out of there as quickly as
you can see it in her eyes. See it in her eyes.
She keeps saying, "I need to go," but staying. She wants it, which is a great kind of change from that kind of character. And there's a moment later on where they talk about the truth, and she says, "I need more than just to believe. I need information." And now she's getting information and facts. She just wants to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good.
So Scully doesn't remember the women, but they ask her about the mark on the back of her neck. That's when they start showing their implants. Scully gets frustrated and says she just came to see Betsy Hagopian, and then that's when they say, she's in the hospital, and they take Scully to the hospital, and basically Betsy is dying of cancer, and they turn around and say, this is what happens to all of us who've been taken. And Scully's like, she's like, I just came here to speak to someone. I don't need to be told that I'm going to get cancer. So, so you see her proper freaking out there. But I think as an audience member, if you're watching this for the first time, it's just like, whoa, bombshells just getting dropped everywhere. But so Mulder climbs out of the water.
He's just went to the boat. He's going to the boat.
Well, he went just before the scene we've talked about. I missed it. So he went on to the Talipus. So he found that it was indeed the Talipus. He doesn't find anything on there, but a SWAT team arrives.
Yeah,
and he jumps into the water. But when he comes out,
we seemingly jump several hours because it's now pitch darkness, where it was afternoon daylight when he jumps in the water. And I'm just like, how long has he been just treading water for?
Well, he must have been down there for a while, because the SWAT team will have been all over the boat, wouldn't they? They'll have been looking for him. So he'd have been just like kind of shriveled up like a prune at the bottom, just waiting for them to leave. And then eventually, boom, he's out. But so he climbs out, and thankfully, I don't know, just manages to climb out at the right spot where they're taking care of. See, this is the bit that I'm a bit like, this all feels a bit piecemeal, and kind of we need certain things to happen, So we're just going to make them happen. And it's like, of all the places that Mulder crawls out, it just feels like it's very, and he's there. It's like, well, okay, but how did he get there? Why aren't these people doing a better job of covering things up? You know, they know Mulder's about. They know Mulder's on this base, and yet he's crawls out of the water a couple of hours later, and then boom, he's, you know. So so he sees a bunch of hazmat suited guys and soldiers. It begs the question: why aren't the soldiers wearing hazmat suits?
It's just
like, but they're all kind of around this big, what looks like a ship. You can't quite see precisely what it is because it's all blurred out behind this sheet. But Mulder's like proper looking in the window, rubbing his pants, going, "Oh, baby!" It's like, you know. So this is like
it looks like well, a bit of like a Flight of the Navigator when they've got the ship behind the kind of curtain and that.
Does, yeah, definitely.
And then they do the thing where they don't actually show you what it is.
That's just the X-Files thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when they do eventually start showing you stuff in the X-Files in the much later seasons, it kind of feels weird. It doesn't feel right. It feels like they're going to pull the rug from under you.
So they've got this giant warehouse, and he's like peering in the window, and they've got hazmat suits, and they've got weird technology and all that, and then they've just got this big shape, and they've got one curtain pulled across the front. Like, it's not in any other side. It's just there.
Yeah, it's
teasing.
That's why the soldiers don't need hazmat suits.
Yeah, I've got that curtain.
Okay, so Mulder arrives home looking very dirty and just in need of sleep, but his door is slightly ajar. So he pulls his gun, goes in, finds Skinner there, and Skinner. This is basically where Skinner says, "Look, you are ruffling feathers left, right, and center, and I'm taking myself out of the equation. Whatever mission you're on, fine, but do it in your own time, or just get the hell out because it's not looking good. But don't come to me because I'm taking myself out on this one.
Don't point a gun at me."
Don't point a gun at me.
We know what happens.
So he tells Mulder about Sukurai being found dead. The Japanese diplomatic embassy are looking for the missing briefcase. So Skinner knows that he has it and just says, "Look, return it, ditch this case as soon as you can because it ain't looking good."
And then we jump to Mulder going to see Matheson.
A friend. It's just this guy is just like,
he's a born politician. You don't trust him.
And he's wearing slacks. You definitely don't trust him. It's just so I don't know if you remember this guy from Little Green Men. Right. So this guy was introduced in Little Green Men, kind of as it looked like he was going to be a replacement for Deep Throat at the time, and then they went with a different direction and had X. But clearly here they've decided, actually, no, this guy can be useful to us. So they brought him back, and everything about this conversation is just off with this guy. And it's like this guy could tell Mulder anything, and Mulder would swallow it because, as his poster says, "I want to believe." He so desperately wants to believe that he's swallowing up what this guy's saying. And I feel like this guy is just leading him down the garden path.
Well, what I like about this scene is it comes right after the conversation with Skinner. Skinner's told him, just give the briefcase back and it'll be done. He goes to see this guy, and the guy's like, sometimes you just need to give up your chess pieces or whatever, something, basically give the case back. So he's kind of echoing what Skinner says, and then he just happens to have these 4 names written down, before Mulder even comes in. And you kind of you got to wonder, why would he even write these names down? He's a guy who deals with secrets. It's like
Well, he implies that he's just got off the phone, doesn't he? So it's like that's the implication there, is that he's just got off the phone with the diplomatic agency who have brought this to him for whatever reason, and he's written down the names of the 4 guys that were killed just before Mulder walks in, which is once again convenient. But it's like they set. Obviously, this is still early days with regards to Skinner. There was always the chance that he might not quite be kosher and that he was one of the bad guys. So they always keep that kind of seed of doubt with him. So having him be the one first to tell Mulder, look, back away from this case. And then you have Senator Matheson who says, back away from this case. But if you are still interested, here's some information. You know, and it's like, oh, that it kind of paints him to be the hero and perhaps Skinner the villain. You know, there's always this kind of like dichotomy of like who's really on the level, who's not. But I just with this guy, I get an icky feeling from him every time he's talking to Mulder.
100%.
Yeah. So.
So
Scully,
we get the reunite of Scully and Mulder back together, don't we?
Yes, yeah. Scully tells Mulder what the MUFON members told her, looking pretty freaked out. He shows her a photo of a group of Japanese scientists, which she claims to recognize one, but she doesn't quite know where from or how. He says it's impossible because he's dead, along with the 4 men from the autopsy who were also on the photo. And it turns out they were a bunch of scientists from World War II who conducted terrible experiments, a bit like the Nazis did. And we see some photos that are quite disgusting and quite shocking, to be honest. And it almost feels a bit weird that Mulder just glosses over the kind of abduction conversation. You know, you feel he'd be like right in there, like wanting to know more, and maybe even speaking to these women himself if he could. But it just seemed for the constant story that we're in, we just need to move along and kind of bypass that. But you feel as if it'd be something he'd be really interested in checking out more of. There is a sense of concern in him when he's looking, because he's looking at the chip. She hands him the chip, and I feel like he doesn't quite know how to respond, but he wants to kind of keep, because he says, you know, like let's get this thing really looked at first before we start panicking. Which begs the question: why haven't they looked at it before? And they have looked at it before, because if you remember in Anasazi, Blessingway, and Paperclip,
she scanned it.
She scanned it, didn't she? And then she took it to a specialist woman who said it was a computer chip that was like well in advance of anything she'd ever seen before. So I find it quite odd that they are now once again talking about getting it looked at, and what could they learn from it that they shouldn't have already learned by now? Which is a bit weird. But it does, however, allow us to be. I can't remember if this is the introduction of Pendrell or what, but I'm sure we've spoken about him before. Actually, I know he played a scientist like this before on the show, but they never called him Pendrell. But this guy that Scully goes to see, this is Agent Pendrell, who over the course of the show becomes a bit of a fan favorite. Mostly because he's got a crush on Scully. So like, it's just how that starts to manifest itself.
He's a cipher for all the viewers.
Basically. Precisely. But so Scully has her clip analysed at the FBI by Agent Pendrell, and he says that computer chips like this are being used for some incredible stuff, like computer interface with cerebral cortex. So, you know, the way that the human brain interfaces with computers and things like that. So, but again, I'm like, shouldn't she know this information at this point? Because she's already taken this to a specialist. Why are we taking this chip once again to another specialist and learning this? This like if I had this chip, if this was a chip that had come out of my neck after having been abducted, I would have had this thing analyzed the crap out of by now. And we already know she's had it analyzed at least once. So so for me, it feels the scene feels a bit redundant, but I get why we have to have it because we have to set up that piece of information. But I feel like they could have given us that piece of information in a different way. I don't know. Just
and then we have Mulder looking for the secret railroad, which is just public railways.
So this is based on the information that Senator Matheson, his friend, gave him. So he's now tracking the train that we saw at the beginning. And just as he gets there, just as he sees it, he sees what looks like an alien grey being loaded into the train by a bunch of Japanese triads. And he chases it down. He's like, I've got to get on that train. I've got to get on that train. At which point Scully phones him because X has turned up to tell her that Mulder cannot get on that train. He's walking into a trap. And it's just like, at this point, I'm like, whose agenda is being kind of seen here? So like, Skinner could potentially have an agenda, or he's at worst kind of helping someone else to follow their agenda. You've got the Japs who they're the ones doing the experiments, so they've got their own separate agenda. You've got a hitman going down trying to track down these Japanese people and execute them. So who's he working for? Then you've got Senator Matheson, who's okay to put Mulder onto the case, so he's clearly got an agenda. Is it because he wants Mulder to succeed in his work, or does he have a separate agenda that is actually more villainous? Then X turns up and he's saying, don't let him get on the train. So it's like, man alive, I can't cope with all this like intrigue and so that's what this scene does to me. Is X showing up and saying, don't let Mulder get on that train, just makes me think, I have no clue what's going on right now. I have no clue like who wants what. All I know is Mulder wants to be on that train. He wants to see what that alien's all about, and his is the only motive that is clear to me. So let's go with that.
And we've also got Scully talking about the doctor because she sees him on the tape.
Yes. So she phones Mulder and says, "Holy crap! I recognize where I saw the doctor from. He's right here on your tape." And Mulder's like, "Well, that's where you know him from then." And she said, "No, not where I know him from at all." And she has a flashback. So he was one of the scientists that worked on her when she was taken.
Which is just weird because it looks as if everybody's like COVID ready, with the exception of this one guy who's just face mask down.
It's just, better put that back on.
It's interesting, but then I think he gets instantly dispatched, doesn't he?
Yes.
Stephen McHattie gets him in the train station.
Well, Stephen McHattie gets the younger guy.
Is it? Oh, it's the younger guy. Yeah, but we see the older guy there.
Yeah, the older guy gets on the train, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then McHattie follows him on the train. So, so obviously McHattie is after him next episode. We'll see where that goes. Yes. So all these things are just converging, and it just feels like there's about 20 different motives and reasons for what's happening right now, and I have no clue about any of them other than Mulder.
We get to a bridge where Mulder is talking to Scully. The train is coming. She's saying, "Don't do it. Don't go." He's like, I need to find out. And I'm like, I'm going to be pissed off here. Because one, he's not going to jump and it's going to leave all these unanswered questions. Or two, he's going to jump and this is going to be a two-parter. And either way, I'm going to be bloody annoyed.
It's a two-part.
Yeah.
You knew it was a two-parter, though, did you?
No.
You didn't? Oh, no.
No,
I thought you knew that going in. I thought I told you.
I'm that far removed that I keep like I don't know. So I'm just thinking it's not got a lot of time to wrap things up here.
Yeah. So Mulder hits the deck, boom, in what is quite a brilliantly orchestrated set piece. I think the way they use the stuntman and David Duchovny, the way the footage is integrated with each other to make it look. Like I know Duchovny did actually ride on the top of that train, did a drop, not from the bridge, but just like, so the way it's all pieced together, really cinematic.
It actually makes good sense of why he loses the phone.
Yes, yeah.
Like he can't put it away. He's on the phone. The train's coming. He has to make a decision, and just hitting off the train, he has to drop it.
Yeah.
So normally there's a silly reason as to why they. Hang on, I need to jump. But no, it's reasoned. And then we have to be continued. Damn it.
So, overall thoughts?
I like this one. I wouldn't say I liked it a lot. I feel like there is a super amount of information being delivered. And even though it is quite fascinating, like you said, probably on a rewatch, it's not going to be as captivating because once the information is delivered, it doesn't feel exciting the second time around. I love the kind of grandiose story that it has, but I feel that it is literally got a lot going on with various different factions, people we don't know, so many people, like you said, the Senator, we've got McHattie, we've got X, we've got Skinner, and then we've got the Japanese faction, we've got the trains, we don't know what the hell's going on. There's a lot of information here, and it's a hard one to really like give a score to, because I feel that this is going to, more like any of the other two-parters, this is really going to have to deal with what happens next.
Yeah, it's going to hinge on whether or not the second part ties up.
Yeah, really pays it off. So for me, I'm kind of comfortable giving it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm the same. I give it a 4 out of 5. I think as a proper X-Files nut back in the day, this probably would have been a 5 out of 5 for me, because I was just really big on the mythology episodes, but now I can take them all in context. I know where it sits within the whole mythology and stuff. And I'm like, no, this is a very good episode. It's really solid, still holds up, but there are a few little complaints I had about it, which I mentioned. So 4 out of 5 from me as well.
Okay, so next episode is going to be 731. Now, tell me a little bit about this and how it kind of fits into the lexicon of X-Files.
It's weird, because you could say this. You could say this about so many. I think you're either going to really love it or you're going to really hate it. But it's very much like a one location kind of deal. Obviously, Scully's doing her stuff. She's going off to all different locations, but Mulder's trapped on this train with a hitman and an alien. So, there's a lot of stuff.
I mean that sounds great.
It is. I do like that stuff. It's actually the Scully stuff that, for a change, I think I'd probably find less interesting.
Right.
Like when we go to the Scully stuff, I'm more inclined to say, let's get back on the train. I want to see what's going on the train, which doesn't often happen. It's usually Scully that we're like.
Whereas in this episode, you've got the dueling stories, but they're both equally intriguing and interesting.
Yes. I think on a first watch, both are going to be equally interesting. Again, I'm judging it from someone who's seen them so many times.
Yeah.
After having seen it so many times, I'm like, for me, the action is on the train. The talky stuff is with Scully going around doing what she's doing. So,
Good. Well, that's something to look forward to. We'd love to know your thoughts on this episode. You can let us know at any of our social media contacts, which should be in the comment box below or the information box. And we will see you next time on the X-Files Revisited.